Christmasaurus by Tom Fletcher, Chapter 4, Inside the Egg. Santa sat on the egg day and night. It was very uncomfortable, as I'm sure you can imagine. But the elves made him breakfast, brunch, elevenses, lunch, tea, dinner and supper every day, and delivered it to him on a tray with a song. They even wheeled his television into the makeshift egg warming room, the airing cupboard, so that Santa could watch his favourite Christmas films, which were mostly about him, while the egg defrosted beneath his enormous backside. Occasionally the egg would wobble a little, and the longer Santa perched on top of it, the more and more it wobbled. Santa knew this was a good sign that the warm bottom was doing the trick. But time was not on the egg's side. Each day that passed brought Christmas a day closer. Come on, egg wobbler, whatever you are, if you don't get a shift on and hatch by Christmas Eve, then I'll have no choice but to fly off and leave you. I'd hate to give up on you, but children need me. It's my duty, you see, Santa whispered worriedly as the clock struck midnight, signaling the end of another no-show day from whatever was inside the egg. At that moment, Santa had an idea. Maybe the egg would hatch faster if the airing cupboard was even warmer. Snozzletrump, whack up the central heating to full blast at once, Santa ordered. After a few hours, the ranch felt like a sauna. Sprout even cut the legs off his trousers and turned them into shorts. It wasn't long before all the elves thought that it was a pretty nifty idea and followed suit. And for the first time in history, the North Pole gift shop in the elf city started selling sweater vests instead of sweaters and snapback caps instead of thick woolly elf hats. It was the hottest Santa's ranch had ever been. Santa stripped right down to his stripy red and white undervest and his best Christmas underpants, the ones with the white snowflakes on them that played jingle bells when you pulled them up. He was so hot and sticky, but he didn't mind. He would do whatever it took to get that thing inside the egg out safely. All this time, Santa and the elves had been trying to guess what was wobbling around inside the egg. Some elves guessed it was a bunch of big bunnies. Others thought it would be a large polar bear. There were lots of stupid, nonsensical elf guesses, and none of them got it right. But of course, they hadn't read the start of this story as you have. I'm sure you've guessed by now that this egg was the exact same special egg I told you about at the beginning. So unlike Santa and the elves, you know exactly what was inside. Soon there was only one chocolate left in Santa's advent calendar, and that meant it was Christmas Eve. Come on, Eggie, there's not much time, sighed Santa, patting the smooth shell under his bottom. All the North Pole elves and their families had crowded into the egg warming room to show their support. Some had brought candles, others had brought little electric heaters from their homes. They all sat together around the egg and sang Christmas carols all day long, trying to encourage the egg wobbler to wobble its way out. After a while, Snozzletrump inspected the egg, running his hands over every inch of its shell. When he had finished, he turned to face the waiting crowd with a sorrowful expression on his sweaty face. The egg that sits behind my back has not one single hatching crack. Santa let out a long sigh. He knew the time had come for him to step from the egg and get ready for crack. A great noise echoed around the room. All the elves jumped to their feet. Shh, everyone, hissed Santa. From on top of the egg he put his hand down and felt the smooth shell. He ran his hands along the shiny surface, which was no longer cold and frozen, but actually quite warm. Suddenly he stopped moving his hand. He felt something. He moved his fingers back a few millimetres, and there was a very thin but very definite crack in the eggshell. It's hatching time, Santa bellowed. A hushed excitement spread like magic throughout the room as Santa carefully climbed down from the egg and stood with all his elves watching. And then, out of nowhere, a very deep rumble could be heard. It was a most peculiar sound, almost like the rumble of a distant train, or like a very loud, very hungry tummy. The rumble was coming from inside the egg. Santa looked at the 8 elves who had found the egg, who were all looking excitedly nervous, or maybe they were nervously excited. It was hard to tell. The rumble grew louder. The egg started to wobble. Suddenly that tiny crack broke open a little more. Now there was a big, deep, dark crack which you could almost see into. All the elves held hands very tightly. Snozzle Trump let out a nervous Snozzle Trump. Then, just as suddenly as it had all started, everything seemed to stop. The rumble stopped, the wobbling stopped. There were no more cracks appearing, just silence. Everyone in the room was still, except for Santa. He took one brave step forward and peered into the shell. He couldn't see much. It was all very dark, but it looked like there was something shiny inside. As Santa leant in for a closer look, that shiny something blinked. "It's an eye!" gasped Santa, and the eye was looking out at everyone in the room. Santa almost jumped out of his skin, which made all the elves almost jump out of their skins. Once they'd all got back in their skins, everyone laughed nervously at themselves for being such scaredy cats. That's when it happened. Crack! A boom! Santa and the elves dived for cover as the egg exploded into a billion sparkly pieces, showering the room in shimmering shell that felt like glitter dust over their heads. Slowly Santa got to his feet and sneezed off some of the shell dust from his moustache and beard. He brushed glitter from his underpants and wiped his full moon spectacles, and when he put them back on his nose, he couldn't quite believe what his eyes saw. In the middle of the room where the egg stood moments ago, there was something impossible. But this was the North Pole, where anything is possible. "What is it?" cried the elves. Then they heard a roar. "Well, bless my kringles," Santa said with a tear in his eye. "It's a baby dinosaur."